Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a good time so far during the day. I'm delighted to welcome you to this exclusive Fireside Chat brought to you at the ETHRWorld Human Capital Experience, APAC, on the topic Leaning into Learning in the New EX with Kate Renner, Head of Employee Experience at Wisr. Businesses and customer demands are changing at a never thought of velocity. With these changing demands, our workforce also needs to be continuously upskilled and reskilled. In this one-on-one session with Kate, we will talk about how HR and L&D leaders can plan their upskilling, reskilling, and hiring strategies to support the changing business demands while delivering a great learning experience for its workforce. And with great pleasure, I would like to introduce and invite our speaker for this session. We have Kate Renner, Head of Employee Experience at Wisr. Kate is an employee experience talent and wellness enthusiast who is passionate about inspiring engagement, fostering high performance, understanding the inner workings of human behavior, creating workplace inclusion, leading discussions about diversity, and solving people problems. Kate believes that with the right people, tools, mission, leaders, and behaviors in place, we can create meaningful workplaces and technology that can change the world. Thank you, Kate, so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
So are we, and I'm sure our audience will learn a lot from the insights you'll share today. So without any further delay, let's start this exciting conversation. Kate, I'll come to you first with the most imperative question that organizations are facing these days. Should upskilling and cross-skilling be a key priority for organizations?
Yeah, great question. And it should absolutely be a priority, especially in the day and time that we have upon us in the pandemic. People have really had time to reflect and understand and think a little bit more about their career, where they want to be. So not only do employees want to reskill and upskill based on where they want to go in their career and what they've identified as important to them, but for employers, technology is changing, the world is changing, and our organizations really need to be adaptable. And the way that you do that is by cross-skilling and upskilling your workforce. Really turning them into people that can change, that can mold, that can pivot on a dime.
Exactly. I think it's the world of work, specifically in the past 2 years, has changed so drastically that organizations who have to be at the forefront of this change have to be adaptable. And being adaptable today, actually means that you create a culture of learning and upskilling and reskilling your employees to meet up with these changes that are happening around. So great point there. Thanks for sharing that, Kate. So Kate, we're talking about how the workforce and workplace have changed and how we move into a hybrid environment now. Some organizations are reopening while some continue to work in a remote setup. So how can employers encourage widespread adoption of learning initiatives amongst a diverse and hybrid workforce?
Yeah, so I think we've all experienced the change. We've got people working remotely. Maybe we're opening up opportunities more remotely around the country that you're in or around the world. And it's so important to make sure that the learning initiatives and programs that we're rolling out are really adapted and suited for this hybrid work model. So being digital first and bringing on digital tools and learning is absolutely essential. So organizations really need to think about anytime, we're rethinking the programs that we have or what we want to implement. We have to think, how does this look in a remote setting? Is this adaptable to our people that aren't here, maybe at the HQ? Is it adaptable for people that will never maybe come to HQ or will be remote for their entire career?
Yeah, exactly. As organizations are going digital in every possible way, learning initiatives too have to become digital, and organizations have to see that no matter where your employees are based out of, they're able to make full use of your learning initiatives. So I think, as you said, digital platforms, being able to help make those learning initiatives reach your employees far and wide is going to be very important in the hybrid environment. So great point again. Thanks for sharing that, Kate. Coming to learning behavior, and we see that it's very important that organizations create that learning culture, and they can and they should include these learning behaviors into their performance review process or into their salary packages or employment packages. So what are your thoughts on this, Kate? Should organizations have a formal process in which they incorporate learning behavior into these processes?
Yes, I think it's absolutely vital to weave learning and the infrastructure into the organization. So at Wisr, what we've done, when we launched our learning culture more formally, though we always had, a culture of learning and development, was we actually built out, we have Wisr behaviors, which are aligned to most organizations' values. So we weaved a new behavior that was called Lean into Learning into those. So we talk about it at induction. We connect those to nominations that we have monthly when we're doing recognition. We bring that into our performance review. So you're actually reporting on not only your business results and outcomes, but you're talking about those behaviors, one of which those key behaviors will be learning. And then, of course, with that performance review and talking, you mentioned salary and package, can we bring development into that? We absolutely can. When we reflect on, our performance and what that looks like, with our leader, we then bring those conversations into compensation. So I think it's a key driver of all of those.
It is. And Kate, could you tell us a little bit more about how did you revamp your learning initiatives, specifically in the past 2 years when you went remote, when you went hybrid, a little bit more about the kind of initiatives the Wisr has launched in these current times?
Yeah, absolutely. We launched a platform called Udemy for Business, which has a whole ecosystem of learning on there. So it's got business courses, it's got leadership courses, it's got technology courses. It has personal development, so you can do a course about making sourdough or gardening. So it was really tailored to, employees being able to find what they needed to upskill in their roles, but also find those passion types of courses and incorporate those as well. Leaders are able to assign courses. We're able to report and see, where the trends are. We've had a lot of courses and people taking tech courses, which has been amazing to see. And we're also able to connect those courses to business outcomes. So we're able to see the trends of where people are growing and learning and how that's driving what we need from a business perspective and how we pivot it.
And did you see kind of an uptick in your adoption of these learning initiatives by your employees in the recent times?
Yes, absolutely. We really saw an uptick in adoption when we were able to weave in that learning behavior, I think from the ground up, because then we were talking about it at all of our town hall meetings. Leaders were talking about it more broadly. Leaders started adopting more learning days and hack days for their team. So it was really exciting to see. And I think when you have, leadership on board and you're talking about learning from every, kind of angle when people are joining and as they progress through their careers, that's where you really will get the adoption.
Yeah, exactly. Agree with you totally. I think, and I think your point on how learning should be tied to business performance and also an employee's personal aspirations. These 2 points are going to be very important going forward as organizations build on their learning initiatives. So great points. Thanks for sharing that. We're talking about how do you create that learning culture, that learning behavior. What learning infrastructure can employers implement, Kate, in order to ensure a competitive edge in a candidates market where there's a war for talent happening? People are talking about great resignation to great attraction. How can organizations work on creating that learning infrastructure?
Yeah, definitely. So, it's going to look different, of course, from business to business. And a key component is sitting down with your key leaders and stakeholders and exec and understanding what you really want from a learning culture. But I think much like you're saying with the great resignation and with people, really wanting development to be part of their career and purpose to be, centered around their roles, they're really going to want to see that more. So I would absolutely challenge, HR and learning and development leaders to talk to the business, understand, what is the outcome and what are you, what are you measuring off the back of these, and how can you, weave in learning at every part of the employee journey.
Yeah, I think, again, very important point. How do you weave in learning at every part of the employee journey, from the moment you get them on board to the moment they retire or they take exit from your organization? Creating those touch points, those, at every employee life cycle is going to be very important. So, Kate, we are talking about individual employees and how do you create learning initiatives to tailor to suit their wants, their aspirations. You spoke about it. How can organizations do that? How do you bring that balance between organizational goals and individual learning growth goals?
Yeah, I think that comes a lot down to leader, partnering with the employee to understand what their goals are. That's step one. Really understanding what your people want in their career, and then taking their expertise around, what they know from senior leadership of what the business needs, and bringing those two together and guiding the employee down the track of, finding the courses that suit what they want from their individual perspective and what they're craving. And then you bring along, what the business needs, and it helps to drive that employee in the right direction of moving towards, goals that are aligned to the business and goals that are also aligned to that individual. So really, really important. And I think it takes, a lot of partnership from a leader and an employee.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, it's very important these days to understand the needs of your employees, or even when it comes to learning, because they have a personal aspiration and they want it to align to the organizational goal as well. But you have to listen and act on that first as a leader to understand what works best for the organization and the employee both. So, Kate, another question that comes to my mind right now is about the role of leadership here. How can they inculcate that learning behavior first by leading from the front when it comes to learning?
Absolutely. Leaders are so key in this whole equation. And I think that we all know leading by example is absolutely, going to be key. So leaders themselves taking the opportunity to go and learn, to share, whether they went to a conference or they did a course online, or they experimented with something in the team, to actually share that they've done that, share that what they've gotten out of that, share the business outcomes with the team. That's going to really show the team, oh, this is accepted by the organization and my leaders out there doing it and building out the time for it. So I need to do that too. And then leaders, of course, can weave in the conversations into their one-on-ones. Again, it'll come through in feedback and absolutely should, and all the way through to performance reviews. But I think, leading by example is really how they're going to kick that off and start doing it for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Because learning should never stop, no matter what position you're at in the organizations. If leaders can set that example, it cascades down to the entire organization and people get encouraged to learn more. Also, Kate, a very important aspect of learning is measuring the outcome for HR leaders or L&D leaders. Any thoughts around that? How can you better measure the outcomes of your learning initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple ways that we're measuring and what we're looking at in terms of data. So one of those is, of course, just learning hours and seeing how that's growing and changing over the months, which is really important. But then we're drilling down into the trends of courses. So what types of courses are people taking? And then we drill down even further to understand the specific courses, and being able, when we talk to those leaders about the courses their people are taking, we're understanding more how it actually drove a specific project, or it's driving an enhancement in our products or our technology. So really then, you're making a full circle and understanding the courses really deep down and how they've actually driven a business outcome or something that we've built.
And that's very important, I think, because you have to measure the impact of how it is impacting the organization. Is there a business outcome to it? How are your employees becoming better, more efficient and more effective with the learning initiatives that you've planned for them? So that's going to be very important. So thanks for sharing that, Kate. And the final question, Kate, is firstly, two questions actually that I'll tie together. One is, how can you reward learning behavior, firstly? And secondly, if you could give a final advice to learning leaders to implement learning strategies at every employee stage of the employee life cycle.
Yes, definitely. So rewards around learning, we do a lot of fun things. So we do learning leaderboards where we look at the top 10 learners in terms of how much learning they've done for the month, and we talk about it at town hall, so celebrating that. We also bring learning stories into town hall, so someone will come up and share a course or a conference that they've gone to and exactly how they applied it to their role, and really have that stage and that place to speak. And of course, we do certain promotions. So we'll do, if you post on the Learning Slack channel this month, we have gift cards that we'll give out, things like that, to really drive that learning behavior. And I would just say for learning and development and HR leaders, take a look at the employee life cycle, understand your EVP and what you're talking about at recruitment, understand what onboarding looks like, understand different parts of the employee journey from probation to promotion to performance review, and see where you can put learning into those milestones and into that journey.
Great points. Thanks, Kate. Thank you so much. I think I agree again that it is about inculcating and embedding learning into every step of the employee life cycle and the employee journey, planning it as such from the stage of hiring an employee. How do you offer them those kind of learning initiatives, those kind of learning programs that encourage them to perform better at the job that they're doing? And how do you take it through every stage that the employee is with you in the organization? And finally, reward them, include it in the performance review process, make it digital for them so that they can access it from anywhere at any time, and basically learn, and so that employees can align their personal goals with the organizational goals and finally lead to some good business outcomes. So thank you so much. Any final lines, any final notes you'd like to share, Kate, before we wrap the session up?
Oh, I just think that, we all have the power to expand learning. So, embrace it, think about it in different contexts too. It's not just courses out there, it's experimenting with something, it's failing, it's getting better at what we do, and then bringing organizations together to be better.
Absolutely great. Thank you. Thank you so much. On that note, Kate, thank you so much for such an engaging conversation. There was a lot to learn from you. And I think, yes, learning is the way forward for organizations and employees. You have to create that learning culture. You have to encourage, reward learning behaviors. And that is how your organization will stay ready, stay relevant, and adaptable for any further changes in the world. So on that note, once again, thank you so much, Kate, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And to all our audience members, thank you so much for joining us for this session. Do stay with us for many more such exciting sessions through the day. Next up, we have a panel discussion on creating a workplace where well-being and mental health are nurtured. See you all there. Thank you.